including Houston City Council approving a 5-year, $16.7 billion capital improvement plan, creating a path for updates to streets and drainage, new fire stations, and other projects. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Celestia Sherman. We'll also talk with Dr. Brent Kaziny, who'll discuss how hospitals and families can better prepare for hurricanes, heat waves, and future pandemics.
Plus, we'll also hear the latest installment of Friends of Frank, where I chat with Pam Lamp, author of the book Do the Next New Thing and host of the podcast Who I Met Today.
And as Frank and I discuss the top headlines of the day, we want your thoughts, your questions, and concerns. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. The Supreme Court has cleared the way for South Carolina to exclude Planned Parenthood from its state Medicaid program. The ruling allows the state to cut off Medicaid funding to clinics that provide abortion services, even if funds are used for other care like cancer screenings or birth control. Advocacy groups argue the state has the right to determine which providers qualify for Medicaid funding. The Pentagon released its assessment of the U.S. airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities last weekend. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the attacks caused massive damage. NPR's Quill Lawrence reports Hegseth also attacked the media for suggesting otherwise.
The Secretary of Defense repeatedly praised President Trump's leadership in deciding to attack Iran's nuclear sites last weekend. He attacked the press for reporting on leaked preliminary intelligence assessments that cast doubt on whether Iran's nuclear program has been destroyed. Hegseth cited other Trump administration sources, as well as the international community, to assert that the mission succeeded. He said he was not aware of any intelligence that Iran might have moved some of its stockpile of nuclear fuel. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, gave a lengthy presentation, including videos of the bombs, and describing the years of planning and hours of nonstop flight by U.S. servicemen and women. But he said a full assessment of the strike was still pending. Quill Lawrence, NPR News.
The Senate parliamentarian has rejected key Medicaid provisions and a massive spending bill that's currently before the upper chamber. NPR's Claudia Grisales reports it was a key part of the measure designed to help offset the costs of the legislation's tax cuts.
It's a pretty big blow when it comes to cost savings and their timeline. We already know Senate Majority Leader John Thune can only afford to lose 3 members of his conference to get this passed in the chamber. And plenty more are opposed when we add these Medicaid changes.
That's NPR's Claudia Grisales reporting. The U.S. economy shrank more in the first 3 months of the year than had been previously reported. NPR's Scott Horsley reports on the updated figures released today by the Commerce Department.
Revised figures from the Commerce Department show the U.S. economy shrank at an annual rate of 0.5% in January, February, and March. That's a slightly bigger drop in first quarter GDP than had been reported. Much of the downgrade reflects lower consumer spending. The nation's trade gap widened last month after narrowing in April when President Trump announced his worldwide tariffs. Exports and imports were both down in May, but exports dropped more. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
On Wall Street, the Dow was up 297 points. This is NPR News in Washington.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. Houston's Pride Parade and Festival is this weekend. Organizers say DEI policies and the LGBTQ+ community have been under attack in Texas and across the country. News 88.7's Adam Zuvinich has more on how the festivities are being impacted.
Thousands of people will gather downtown on Saturday for the city's annual event celebrating the LGBTQ+ community and its allies. They may notice a scaled-back entertainment lineup and fewer corporate logos. Kendra Walker is an advisor for Pride Houston 365, which has held the festival and parade for decades. She says the group lost more than $180,000 in sponsorships this year.
Pride Houston has not been immune to this difficult political climate. It's really sad.
Walker says Pride Houston gained some new sponsors to help make up for the ones it lost, but many of the usual events leading up to the parade had to be scrapped. I'm Adam Zuvinich, News 88.7.
A recent poll among the University of Texas and the Texas Politics Project found President Donald Trump's approval rating among Texans had fallen into negative territory. According to the survey, Trump's approval in Texas has fallen from 52% in February to 44% this month. That same survey also collected Texans' opinions on banning the sale of THC products throughout the state, which the majority of residents, 53%, disapprove of. In sports, the Astros take another one from Philly 2-zip last night. Phillies finish up their visit to Houston this afternoon at Daikin Park. First pitch at 1:10. Houston continues to lead the AL West by 5.5 games. Taking a look at weather, a 50% chance of showers and thunderstorms this afternoon, partly sunny otherwise, 89 the high. Tonight, partly cloudy, a low of 76. Right now, partly cloudy, 86 degrees on the UH campus. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive. Progressive Commercial Insurance protects small businesses from retailers to tradespeople. Progressive covers a variety of business needs with a range of coverages. More at progressivecommercial.com.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome.
Hello, Houston.
Hello. Thank you for joining us today.
Gosh, we're almost to Friday, aren't we?
We're almost to Friday. Okay, so usually, Ernie's not in today.
Right.
And he'll be back July.
Well, he's only been here 80 years, and so he has like 400 weeks of vacation.
Yeah.
So it's summer, it's slow, his mom needs him, so I get it.
You took some time off. We're all going to be taking time off throughout the summer.
Sure, absolutely.
It'll be great.
So good for him. But hello, Ernie, if you're watching.
Yeah. Hi, Ernie.
You.
Hello.
We love you. Where are
Yes.
you? But whatever you're doing.
Thanks for joining us, whether you're listening in your car or watching us on YouTube. And if you haven't yet gone to YouTube.
Well, you should go right now because I'm in my casual Friday look.
Friday look.
You're much more stylish
I'm
today.
a little more stylish, a little more casual. I am recording this afternoon another cold coffee episode, which we're going to hear one of your installments.
Yeah, Friends of Frank. Yeah, Pam Lamp will be on. She's wonderful. She was from here. Mm-hmm. Her husband moved to Nashville. They tried the commuter marriage. It didn't work.
Yeah, it's tough.
And so she moved to Nashville. And when she got there, she didn't have any friends. And so she was like, what can I do to be happy here? And her solution was do one new thing every day, whether it's a new coffee shop or a new friend or a new hobby or a new art gallery or just something that you've never, not done. And she found her way. And now she's really good friends with Roseanne Rogers, and she has a great life.
Because I think that so many of us nowadays, I know I've moved for my husband's work. We move around. It's much more easier to relocate. And so to have somebody say, listen, I did it and you can do it too. And you can even do it in your own city if you need new things to do.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Hey, yesterday,
yes,
we talked about how it hasn't really gotten that hot.
Right.
Because these rain showers, there are more right now already.
Today it felt really hot this morning.
Because the sun was in full force, that's for sure. But officially, I looked up for you. Yeah. 98 at Bush Intercontinental is the hottest it's gotten. That was on June 8th. And then 94 at Hobby, 95 Sugarland Airport, 91 in Galveston. So we've basically stayed in the low to mid-90s at tops for most of us for the summer. And it's interesting. We, of course, don't have a drought. But I don't know. There's extreme drought going on, like in Kerrville. They're in rationing. And then if you got to El Paso, they've had a 2-year drought. Wow. So we're really kind of fortunate that we've had.
We're getting some of these showers. So, I personally love, I've said it a million times, a nice summer shower. It's great for my garden.
Yeah. Speaking of, I told Kevin, I said, today's our obsession day. And he said, pick gardening.
No.
Just to tick her off.
Kevin. Coming for you, Kevin.
But I want to give you a hint.
Yes.
So if you have a about my obsession for today. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is, but if you have a hidden little town or city that you've explored, I want to hear about it. If you want to call us, 713-440-8870. Like, I've never been to Kerrville.
Oh, yeah.
And I hear about Wimberley.
Yes, Wimberley.
Wimberley.
Yes,
Sorry.
Wimberley.
There's all these places that I kept telling Kevin, when I retire, we're going to go. And I retired and we didn't go.
Well, you're now
And
here
now
with
I'm
me.
Here. Now I'm here.
I should be your current obsession, Frank.
God,
But
that
like
would
Frank
be way
said,
too weird.
you can join the conversation with an email to talk@hellohouston.org, or you can also send a text or call us 713-440-8870. That is one thing that absolutely makes Hello Houston unique, and that is you joining the conversation. And we have had, I would say, some of our most interesting perspectives come from you, whether you're watching on YouTube and commenting in the chat section or simply sending a text or an email. I love reading the emails.
I got Alex Garza already. You know, Alex and British guy are always on
yeah,
YouTube.
we have some of our regulars.
And he said my favorite weather term of yours is cone of uncertainty.
Cone of uncertainty.
My boss used to call it cone of overtime.
Yeah. Cone of uncertainty means cone of overtime. That's right. That's funny.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Okay,
But,
let's
Frank,
let's get on with it.
Yes, that's right. Frank, what else do we have coming up this hour?
You know what? Texas Children's Hospital's Dr. Brent Kaziny on how hospitals and families can prepare better for hurricanes and heat waves and pandemics and all the stuff we go through.
Yeah, we go through a lot of stuff around here. So,
Yeah.
but diving right into the topics, Houston City Council approved a 5-year, $16.7 billion capital improvement plan on Wednesday, paving a path for updates to streets and drainage, new fire stations, a massive water plant overhaul, airport renovations, and other projects. Multiple council members described the plan as aspirational due to the unfilled status of many projects from previously approved plans. Finance Director Melissa Dubosky told the city's budget committee earlier this month a lot of projects weren't completed in 2025 and have been rolled over into the 2026 plan. Council members proposed 20 amendments to the 5-year plan, 4 of which were approved. The changes included speeding up the replacement of a police station in Northwest Houston, a new drainage project to address severe flooding in the Westwood subdivision, and the purchase of the city's second-lane stripping vehicle. What are your thoughts on City Hall passing this improvement plan? Do you think it will actually happen? And what about the numbers? What are we thinking about these numbers? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
Well, you know what? I think it's pretty good, actually.
Yeah, you were telling me you took a deep dive into it.
Well, $16 billion over 5 years amortizes at what, about 3 point something per year.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's like that. I think it's a lot now and then a little bit less.
It's incrementally, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we need some big help. And I know that a lot goes to the airports. And we've seen that already at Bush Intercontinental, Hobby. People forget we own the airports. The city owns the airports, including Ellington. Mm-hmm. And so we have to keep them up, and we're getting more and more tourists in here, more and more events. We have to have a good, welcoming airport because let me tell you, LaGuardia has ramped up.
It's a mess.
No, not what. It's beautiful now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They've really, it was. It used to be a mess.
Yeah.
If you go to LaGuardia now, it's beautiful. Dallas, love airport. It's great. I mean, the Hobbies ramped up the food and all that. So we have to really keep it stellar for them. And we have to have safe runways and safe lighting and all that sort of stuff. So that's part of it. And then the water issue for
drainage.
The flood drainage, that's a big part of it. And then just
what was the plant?
The water park, the water plant.
Yes.
That's that's like $2 billion of it.
Yeah.
And I think $1 billion this year. And then it goes, toward the other $1 billion the next few years because when Mayor Whitmire was here, he was saying that keeps him up at night, the water plant issue. So he made sure that not only was on there, but got a good chunk of it.
And when you're looking at the budget, the line items, it seems like we're really focusing on infrastructure. And as you mentioned,
streets.
Where Mayor Whitmire was on, he talked about infrastructure. We've had, multiple leaders. The airport, head of the airport system was on, and he talked about infrastructure. Centerpoint, when they were on here on Hello Houston, talked about infrastructure. So I feel like if these dollars are being line itemed out and it is directly going to infrastructure, drainage top of mind. We know Houstonians and people within Harris County, we are looking
and streets. I mean,
the
Sylvester
potholes.
Turner ran on potholes and won his first go round. That's what he ran on. I'm going to fix the potholes. And you can only fix so many, and then you can fix them, and you got to fix them again. And so roads. Westheimer's really gotten a haul, and it's great. Yeah. Once it's finished, it's great, but it takes money.
That's right. It takes money to make money.
And in fact, $16.7 billion. And it passed. So I think it's probably good. Now, I didn't see bike lanes in there.
Well,
I'm not going to get into it, but I didn't see bike lanes in there. I don't think this is a bike lane mayor.
We've got 7 minutes in this segment. I don't know if we can do bike lanes. And we already have a call. So there you go. We said those, no. But, if you're interested and you're curious and you want to get more involved in the city, the Houston City Council meets every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. and Wednesday at 9 a.m. in the council chamber at City Hall. The Tuesday session is dedicated to public comment, while Wednesday is for matters requiring council action. Both meetings are open to the public and also live streamed online. So if you're listening to this show and you want to get involved, there you have it.
There you have it. If you want to get involved with us, give us a
call
call.
us.
713-440-8870. All right, let's move on. This next story is almost personal.
Oh.
Having exhausted all other options, the city of Pasadena will be relying on chance next week to determine the winner of a city council election that ended in a tie. I know. Earlier this month, I'm not going to go into it much, but Bianca Valerio and Bruce Lehman each received 272 votes. Okay. Spokesperson for the city told Houston Public Media that a coin flip to decide the seat is scheduled to take place June 30th at 11 a.m. Apparently, everyone's agreed to that. Once the winner's determined, the council meeting continues, and we go on with our lives. And that's perfectly legal. It's a practice in Texas, and casting lots, so to speak, is fine for a second runoff. Okay, so what I would love to hear what you think about this. 713-440-8870. Okay, have you heard of Boys State? Boys State, Girls State. It's when you're in high school. I don't know if they do it here in Texas, but in Alabama and other states, it's if you're a promising senior, as was I, they ask you to go for a long weekend and with all the other kids from around the state and learn more about government. Right.
Okay.
And it's a real practice thing. And you give a quick speech as to why you should be the governor or you should be the lieutenant governor. And I gave the Secretary of State speech and won.
Oh.
And then they came out and said, well, there's 251 of you or something. And we only got 250 votes for governor. So one of you out there did not vote. You shirked your responsibility as an American. You didn't vote. And so we have a tie for governor. Now, I think they were just trying to make a point.
Sure.
That every vote counts.
Yeah.
But, of course, guess who had to flip the coin? The Secretary of State.
I love it. So
I dreaded it.
amazing.
I was like, oh, my God, I don't want to be the coin flipper.
So how did you feel do you feel like that was fair?
Yeah, and everybody agreed to it. But I flipped the coin, I let fall on the ground because I didn't want any magician stuff going on with my hands, So I flipped the coin, and the person who called heads or tails, I don't remember. But they won. But it was a good point to make. But here it is happening in real life at the Pasadena City Council. So we have avoided the coup of Pasadena. So
yes.
I think it is a fair way, and if they agree to it, they agree to it. And I think it's in fact, if you want me to flip the coin, give me a call.
Frank will flip your coin, Pasadena.
I have experience.
I think in a way, if it is legal, in some ways it feels a little simple for something that it might be very important.
It was a tied vote.
But it was a tied vote, and, maybe we're just going back to basics.
Well, also back to you should vote, because there were only 275 votes or something each.
Crazy.
That's not enough. Hey, we have a call.
Oh, okay.
Michael from West Houston on the improvement plan. Michael, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. I'm a practicing civil engineer, a member of the American Society of Civil Engineers, and every 4 years we do a report card on infrastructure, and the grades are not super good. You guys can Google that or look it up. But I really support investment in infrastructure because we think that infrastructure really is the foundation for good communities. I mean, economic activity, social activity, cultural activities. We all need good, water, fresh water to drink in the morning, make coffee, brush your teeth, good roads to get to and from your activities and work and play. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Oh, okay. There's
Thanks,
I thought there was a
Michael.
but coming. I thought there was going to be a but.
Yes.
So
no.
do you think that the amount of money we're spending on it, I don't know if you've done a dive into the budget, does it seem pretty reasonable?
Well, I think there's the infrastructure in Houston is quite old, and so more investments pretty much always needed to replace what's aged and to help raise those grades. So, I think most of the engineers in town would say we probably do need more investment, but we're happy with any investment really at all at this point. But, my part of West Houston, kind of Derry, Ashford, Westheimer area, that all was put in the 1970s as a municipal utility district outside the city, and then got annexed. So literally all the concrete roads out there were built in 1972.
There you
So
go.
they're not in great shape. They're a little old, so they're they need some love and care. So anyway, more's better, but we're happy with anything.
I like it.
Excellent. Thank
I
you,
like
Michael,
it.
for
Thank
joining us
you.
on Hello Houston.
I had a doctor, Dr. David Wolf. Some people might know him. He's a foot doctor. Okay. And I went to see him when I was about 50, and he said, you look great for 50, but don't forget your insides are 50. Take care of yourself.
It's true.
It is. And so a lot of things in Houston look great, but they're still 50 and 60 years old. So you got to remember that.
That's right. And again, we want to hear from you, 713-440-8870. So a major thing is happening this weekend.
Oh, it's so exciting. I was going to go, but I got busy with my own sister-in-law having her 60th birthday, so I couldn't make this event. Tell me about it.
Tech billionaire and former television host Lauren Sanchez are set to marry this weekend in Venice. But love isn't exactly in the air, with some local activists in Venice protesting the upcoming destination wedding. Bezos, who is one of the world's richest men with an estimated net worth of $231 billion, according to Bloomberg Billionaires Index, and Sanchez got engaged in 2023, 4 years after going public with their relationship. There has been a lot of speculation around what is shaping up to be what some are calling one of the most high-profile weddings in recent memory. Wedding planning for the couple has been kept under an intense amount of secrecy, but they have been very public with their extravagant parties and PDA leading up to the weekend. The reports are basically saying this is going to be a multi-day, multi-million-dollar affair. It's expected to draw hundreds of celebrants to a very fragile lagoon city already dealing with over-tourism, and it sparked some concerns. Locals opposing to the wedding festivities have multiple concerns. Some of those range from logistical disruptions to environmental impacts of a sudden influx of yachts and private jets. Some protesters hung a banner in St. Mark's Square with a picture of Bezos laughing and the words, "If you can rent Venice for a wedding, you can pay more taxes." Is this type of display of extravagance and wealth appropriate given the time that we are in? And how about this? If you were to be invited to the wedding, would you go? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
In a heartbeat, I'd go. I love a good wedding. What's the most extravagant wedding you've ever been to?
Oh, I've been to a few. I've been to a few. And it is beautiful. I love weddings. Extravagant or not, I love a wedding. I've been to some of the most beautiful, intimate, small, where we're having punch and cookies type wedding.
Yep.
And you can tell that bride and groom just absolutely love each other. But, I gotta say, at first I was like, I feel like this is a little inappropriate given the fact of what is happening in just right down the street from them. To put this type of extravagance, but I think right now that's in style.
Well, and sometimes the world needs something to take a little focus off of the bad stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, the world always has bad stuff going on. And so it's never appropriate to flaunt your wealth like that. But if he's going to do it, let him do it.
Let him do it. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. We want to hear from you. Full disclosure, if I got invited, I would absolutely go.
I went to a wedding of kids younger than me. I'm at the age where I'm friends of the parents,
Yeah.
And so it was at the Mandarin
that.
Oriental on Columbus Circle in New York in the winter, in December. It had snowed. So, and let me tell you, there was champagne when we got there. And then we went into reception and the wedding, and then after the wedding there was a reception while they flipped the room for dinner and dancing, and so it was more food than anybody could ever eat.
Yeah.
It was great. It was fun.
Yeah, I love a good destination wedding because it's like you have the arrival party, then you have like the brunch.
Well, and
then
it
you
was
have
a
the
destination for
tourist
them.
day.
He was a young lawyer up there,
Oh,
and his wife was
and-
an elementary school teacher.
Beautiful.
But they're doing well. They're in LA now.
Sounds like they're doing well, just like Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez getting married this weekend.
That's right.
But coming up on Hello Houston, we're talking Texas Children's Hospital's Dr. Brent Kaziny on how hospitals and families can better prepare for hurricanes, heat waves, and perhaps even a future pandemic. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
I don't think what scientists are asking for is a science without politics. I think what they're nervous about is that the science itself becomes a servant of politics.
I'm Natalie Kitroeff. That's Today on the Daily from the New York Times.
You can hear the Daily coming up tonight. It's on at 7 on News 88.7.
Hurricane Katrina set a new benchmark for destructive storms. We keep meeting it. In 2017, the catastrophic hurricanes Irma and Maria hit the Virgin Islands within 2 weeks of each other.
It's unforgettable. I think I could be 96 years old and still remember it like it was yesterday.
How climate change is affecting storms and our state of readiness since Katrina on the next Big Picture Science.
You can hear it this Sunday night at 6 o'clock.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, a night of mystery and intrigue with Father Brown at 7, followed by the Sister Boniface Mysteries at 8, and Death in Paradise at 9. Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, or stream
Support
online.
Houston Public Media by donating a vehicle you no longer need. We'll take it in any condition. It's free to you, easy to do, and it could mean hundreds of dollars in support. Visit houstonpublicmedia.org/cars to learn more. Thanks.
Support comes from John Moore, helping with plumbing, electrical, and air conditioning repairs, including out-of-warranty units since 1965. Details at 730-2525 or at johnmooreservices.com. Support comes from Gen Pro, a Houston-based home generator service, providing power to homes during unexpected outages, helping with connectivity and productivity. More information is available at genpro.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Celestia Sherman and Frank Billingsley.
Yep.
That's right.
As I told you, I'd go to the opening of a refrigerator. So a wedding in Venice, that's right up my alley.
Frank is there.
Canal.
Frank is there. But here, as climate disasters, wildfires, and public health emergencies grow more intense and more frequent, being prepared, especially for our youngest and most vulnerable, is critical. Joining us today is Dr. Brent Kaziny, a leading expert in pediatric disaster response. Dr. Kaziny helped evacuate patients during Hurricane Katrina while training at Tulane, a work that earned him the Code Gray Hero Award. He's now the co-director of the National Emergency Medical Services for Children's Disaster Domain. He'll share how hospitals and families can better prepare for hurricanes, heat waves, and future pandemics. Dr. Kaziny, good morning and welcome to Hello Houston.
Hey, thank you guys for having me.
Oh.
Sure. And you can join the conversation by giving us a call at 713-440-8870. You know, Dr. Kaziny, we're talking about pandemics, we're talking about heat waves, hurricanes, and they're obviously disasters, and that's not a good thing. But how does a hospital prepare for those different types of things, or is it all just the same type of strategy?
You know, there are certain things that are universal in our approach when we're thinking about things like our activation of our incident command structure, which is really the way the organization at large manages these events, the way we think about communication with our workforce, employees, with our patients and their families. Those things are universal, but there's obviously specific nuances to some of the types of disasters that we prepare for and think about.
What are some of the, can you give us some examples? Can you elaborate
Yeah,
the
sure.
differences?
Yeah, sure. When you think about, like, I think a great example is thinking about these more recent winter storms, something that we haven't historically really had to deal with, but something that's becoming more frequent that we're having to deal with more frequently here in the Houston area. When we're approaching the winter storm and preparing for that, we're really using some of the same things that we do for a hurricane. We don't have a hurricane preparedness plan. We have a severe weather plan.
Right.
And that plan is what we use in the winter storm. And it's just as effective as managing and kind of setting the expectations. Now, obviously, things like putting down ice melt on the sidewalks is not something we need to think about during hurricanes. And it's something we need to think about during these winter storms. But by and large, the bigger system level preparedness and response is very similar.
So, and this is not a winter storm I want to ask you about, but we're expecting probably the biggest Saharan dust influx of the summer this weekend. Now, does that fill your emergency rooms with asthmatics from children? And I mean, are y'all ready for something like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we're definitely ready to see influx, and we see things like this happen all of the time, whether or not, and granted, not necessarily in our region, but other hospitals that are more fraught with things like wildfires, et cetera. You'll see these influx of potentially asthma exacerbations, and it's something that we're well equipped to deal with on a routine basis in our emergency centers across the Houston area and in Austin. But it is something that we think about, and it's something that we keep an eye on and look towards as we're thinking about what the future, the next week is going to look like for us.
Do you have kind of a checklist of this is when you should take your child to an emergency room, and this is when you need to just maybe tell a doc?
Yeah, it's great. Yes, I think there's so many options for access to care these days compared to the way things were, say, when I was a kid. When I was a kid, you went to the pediatrician's office and that was it. Now you've got your pediatrician's office, you have telemedicine as an option, you've got urgent cares, you have the emergency center. And so a lot of times I think the decision for families is difficult as to where to navigate in the care. And we have a ton of resources at Texas Children's on our website that try to help families make those decisions. But obviously, it's always a great first step to reach out to your general pediatrician's office and see what their recommendations might be.
Dr. Kaziny, as the medical director of emergency management at Texas Children's Hospital, what are some of the top issues that you're seeing with parents bringing their children to the medical emergency center?
Right now, I think when we're looking at it from the framework of disaster preparedness, or what we see when we think about hurricanes or these other sorts of natural disasters that impact our communities, interestingly, a lot of that isn't really related to an influx of patients coming in during the acute event, right? These are things that cause struggles in navigating the roadways, as you guys were mentioning earlier, the flooding and drainage issues that we see in our city. But what we do see is that children oftentimes are displaced during these events. They have to leave their home, they have to evacuate, they go to a neighbor's home, they go to a family friend's home or a family member's home. And a lot of times what we'll see is that their chronic medical conditions, whether that's their asthma or their seizure disorder, those things tend to be exacerbated. And that's likely due to the fact that maybe their medication did not go with them as they evacuated. So again, these things are all really important when families are looking at how to prepare for these things and taking into consideration things like making sure you have talked to your pediatrician or your physician about having a little bit of a stockpile or surplus of medications in case of these sorts of events.
Well, and then there's medication that requires refrigeration, especially for heart medicine. Even for my puppy right now, my puppy has to have this medicine that goes in the freezer. What do you tell people whose kids have medications that have to really be taken care of, not just an extra prescription?
Or might even be hooked up to some type of medical device.
Yeah.
Yes, this is something that we saw, specifically during Winter Storm Uri with the rolling brownouts and blackouts. We saw a large number of technology-dependent patients of ours present to our emergency centers, really because they needed access to electricity. And so again, this comes into, I think about the way that we prepare the hospital as just a bigger version of what families should be doing, and thinking about some of the planning conversations, getting together a family preparedness plan, a family communication plan, evacuation plan. And obviously, if you have a child with technology dependence or a child with a number of medications, some of which may require refrigeration, those are things that really should be thought about and put into that plan.
Well,
And this isn't to suggest that people should go out and spend a bunch of money on a lot of things. These are things that really, it's the conversation and thinking about it before the disaster strikes is really beneficial.
Well, I know you're at Texas Children's Hospital, but seniors have the same issue. My mother was in a senior home when the winter storm hit, and they had to evacuate almost, everybody lost power. So I imagine you have to, the hospital system has to prepare during these big issues for older people as much as they do younger people.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, I'm focused on the children because that's what I do day in and day out. But yes, these are considerations that are, apply to the elderly, apply to anybody that has, chronic medical conditions or requires medication. These are things that should be included in any of those plans. There's the good news is there's a lot of great resources out there for families to access to help with the creation of these plans. I mean, ready.gov is a FEMA website that has a lot of terrific resources on it, and really talks you through that developing a plan, developing your kit, how to stay informed during these events. These are all like the key kind of steps to really making a good plan.
When looking at internally, looking at the hospital and how you all prepare, is there any type of training that y'all go through to be ready for these types of potential influxes? Or like you said, if somebody's displaced, what does that look like for you all?
We do a number of exercises and educational offerings throughout the years. And we try to test everything that we think is going to be the key thing that we're going to be faced with. There are certain things that we do every year. We do a threat assessment. So we do what we call a hazard vulnerability analysis. And we do a number of these across the system, looking at what are going to be our top threats and what are our biggest concerns. And then what we try to do is focus our emergency management kind of plan for the year to address those top threats. So whether that's a recent cybersecurity exercise that we did, thinking about downtime for our computers and the network, whether that's a mass casualty influx in some sort of unfortunate event happening in our community, or a hurricane, those are things that we're routinely drilling and exercising and continually trying to learn lessons from those very rare events that still could occur. Obviously, anytime there's a real event, we, have an after action report, a debrief where we really talk about what went well, what could we improve on, and we're always trying to strive for improving. Even if we think we did a really good job, there's always something we can improve on, and that's what we try to seek out.
And are you ready for the gun violence that happens in our community? I know it's easier to prepare for a winter storm or a hurricane. You get a little bit of a heads up there. Gun violence, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, in the business, we would call these no notice events. These are things that we have very limited heads up about, whether that's, say, could be a tornado or a mass casualty incident like an active shooter in a school. These are things that, again, we worked very closely on drilling and exercising, revising our plans. Now it's, we do these drills with a significant cadence, trying to do them relatively routinely. And then in addition to that, thinking about how to be, create a safe work environment here as well. So thinking about what we need from a security perspective and working closely with our security colleagues to make sure that this is a safe place to be as well.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We are currently talking to Dr. Kaziny. You can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. And we have a call right now from Greg from Kingwood. Greg, what's your comment or question for Dr. Kaziny?
Hi, guys. Interesting show. Especially, I guess my question is, in light of all the potential cuts to FEMA and what DOGE has wreaked havoc with the system, have you altered the normal plans that you made? And if you have any suggestions for us out here in the public who has been used to the cavalry coming, that the cavalry is not coming? And I'll take my answers off the air.
Thank you, Greg. Dr. Kaziny?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I like to think about it this way. Regardless of the cavalry coming or not, everybody should have a plan in place to try to be as self-sufficient and independent as possible for 48 to 72 hours at minimum. I think what we're going to see is really just a restructuring of things where a variety of those things that were potentially done at a federal level are done through the state. And the good news is within the state of Texas, we have a very robust emergency management program. We have state positioned deployable teams that can activate and respond and work really closely with throughout the state of Texas, our regional advisory committees or councils that work on disaster preparedness and response. And I work very closely with Southeast Texas Regional Advisory Council that does that for our Houston metropolitan region.
So I think the question also boils down to how closely aligned is what you do with FEMA, and if FEMA goes away, which it looks like it's going to, how much is that going to hurt you? Are you going to be totally state dependent?
I mean, I'll tell you, after Hurricane Harvey, FEMA sent a team down to Texas Children's to see how they could help. And they had scheduled 3 days to be here to assess things. And after half a day, they said, wow, you guys did such a good job. Like, we don't really need to spend more time here. So I think from our perspective at Texas Children's, we've always taken the approach that we're going to do what we need to do to continue to provide clinical services and provide the excellent care that we provide every day, regardless of what's going on.
Yeah, that's why you have Texas in your name.
What do you want parents to know besides, if a child has, clearly some medical issues, that being prepared is important, making sure that they have resources like batteries and medication. But what about parents that don't have children that are necessarily special needs? So, for example, I have a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old, right? And when I'm thinking of being prepared, I'm not necessarily thinking of their health because they are healthy. What should be top of mind for everybody?
Yeah, again, I think it goes back to the basics. And I think it's interesting, when you have young kids, they do fire safety month and kids will come home and say, hey, we should check the smoke detectors. Mm-hmm. But we don't really think about this or talk about natural disasters and disaster preparedness with our children in that way. So I think, with my children, I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and we talk about these things and we think about what are the things if we had to leave the home you'd want to bring with you? Like, what is your special stuffy or security blanket, or what are those things that you'd want to take with us if we had to evacuate? What are the snacks that you like that we should have on hand in case we need to hunker down and stay in the home? And I really think it's just about opening those lines of communication, thinking about what the communication plan would be for the family if people were separated during an event, how they would get in touch with the people, who would be the common kind of thread that would bring people together. So I think it's really about engaging, and not in a scary way, but in an empowering way, our younger children, even those that don't have any medical issues, to be involved and active in the disaster preparedness plan.
That's such an interesting point, because you're right. During fire awareness, my children they come home and they're like, do we have fire detectors? Do we have ladder? And mommy, but you don't think about that if something were to happen. Okay, if we're to get separated, do we have a meeting place? If you get hurt, what do you do? And
cell phones might not work.
And cell phones might not work.
The towers might be down. So you really do need a common area where you can, and that's true I would say that's for businesses for sure. Mm-hmm. But families are used to getting separated at the rodeo or on the cruise or whatever they do as a family. So take that same structure and apply it to emergencies.
And it sounds like a lot of this preparedness also goes into, like you were saying, Dr. Kaziny, communication.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you that throughout the work that I've done across the country and here at Texas Children's, no matter how good we do with communication, it's always something that we know that we can improve upon. And so I think communication is so key to this, even at the family unit level. We are so dependent upon our cell phones these days. Mm-hmm. Like, how many numbers do you have memorized, right? So it's also just some little tips and tricks, like putting some important numbers on a piece of paper, laminating it if you can, and putting it between your phone and your phone case. You're not going to even know it's there. But when your phone is dead or cell service isn't working or what have you, you have that information handy and readily available to you. Those are just things that I think people don't really think about. It's kind of my job to think about these inevitabilities and what might happen. And so learned a lot of interesting tips and tricks along the way.
That's great advice. Thank you so much, Dr. Kaziny, for joining us today here on Hello Houston.
That's right.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay.
After the break, the latest installment of Friends of Frank.
Friends of Frank.
Stay with us.
Find out why President Trump's rhetoric has Canadians boycotting travel to the U.S. this year.
Then you have the nonsense of Canada's the 51st state, which is an insult to Canada.
Only a bully would see civility, humility, kindness, generosity as weak traits of character.
Hear how it sounds from the other side of the border on the next Travel with Rick Steves.
You can hear that Saturday morning at 6 a.m.
Houston Public Media is rooted in our community. We show up at school board meetings, city council votes, and neighborhood events.
That's how you stay informed about what's happening around you through deep local reporting that brings clarity and insight.
Your support powers this public service, so Greater Houston stays informed, connected, and safe.
Support local journalism right now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Rising inequality is a concern for governments and everyday people, but it might be useful to put the current situation into historical perspective.
Looking at income inequalities in the US or in Western Europe, it's been very stable.
What the left and right get wrong about inequality and how to address it. That's next time on Think.
You can listen to Think coming up tonight. It's on at 10 o'clock.
Support comes from the Eternal Gandhi Museum, celebrating International Day of Yoga with an open house, yoga for all skill levels, cultural performances, and more. Open to the public, June 21st. Registration at egmh.org.
Houston Public Media is licensed to the University of Houston system, governed by the UH Board of Regents. Information about open meetings, dates, times, and locations is online at uhsystem.edu.
And now back to Hello Houston. To get your comment in on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Celestia Sherman and Frank Billingsley.
All right, it's time again for another installment of our recurring series, Friends of Frank, where I chat with some of the many people that I know about the things they know or what they're working on these days. Today, we'll be listening to my conversation with Pam Lamp, author of the book Do the Next New Thing and host of Who I Met Today, a blog and podcast where she interviews people from all walks of life about things like food, travel, health, and so much more. We catch up with her on what she's been doing since we last spoke, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. Here's Friends of Frank. I haven't seen you in 7 years. How are you?
Frank, I'm great, and it's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, well, we met because you first interviewed me right after Harvey, really, 2018, for your blog, Who I Met Today. So tell folks about Who I Met Today, how that blog started.
Well, thank you for asking. I moved to Nashville from Houston, wanted to find something to do for the next chapter. My kids were grown and gone, and I didn't have any friends here in Nashville. I knew I needed to get out and meet people. So I started doing one new thing every single day. Little things, a few big things sprinkled in here and there, but mostly little things. And
like going for a coffee, discovering a new bistro, what exactly?
Taking a walk in a new park, going to the bookstore, and counting that as a new thing, and then discovering that they also had author nights and book clubs. I'd make new foods in the grocery store. Basically, I think I was doing a lot of things on autopilot, and this doing one new thing every day kind of opened up my life to new experiences.
So who said, meet people and write a blog about it?
I continued to do new things, and after about 8 months, my husband knew that I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do for my new chapter. I was agonizing. I couldn't figure it out. I thought it should be a job. And he said one night, what would you do if you could do anything at all? Take income out of the equation and just talk about what you'd like to do. And I said I would go around, talk to people, hear their stories, and write about it. That's how Who I Met Today got started.
Yes, and that was, I know we talked in 2018. When did you actually start the blog?
I think it was 2017.
Uh-huh. Do you have a number on how many people you've met and talked to and blogged about?
About 300.
Yeah, I know. It's been so successful. So at some point, your blog went to sort of a vlog, podcast. Are you still blogging and podcasting, or is it just all podcast now?
It's mostly podcasting now.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I ran out of time. I found that a blog and a podcast was a whole lot of work and didn't leave me a lot of time for other things. So I switched over to podcasting, which I really enjoy.
So clearly it went from boring Nashville to exciting and always doing something in Nashville.
It did. And I found friends and a wonderful community here. I still miss Houston, but Nashville is great.
How many, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, like how many Houstonians did you talk to for your blog or your podcast? I know I'm one of them.
You are definitely one of them. And I don't have a number, but several, because to get going, I would call people and say, I want to do a story on you. Well, this random woman who didn't have a huge online presence and wanted to interview people. So I did have to go to people that I had connections with. And a lot of those in the very beginning were Houston, people like you who were kind enough to give me a chance and trusted me to do a good job.
Yeah. Well, and you did. And I like the way your blogs always read because it's about maybe a page and a half, 2 pages. So it gives you a really good snapshot of the person that you're interviewing without going into a rabbit hole. So it's so well done. I think you've been so successful with that. And so how long now have you been doing the podcast?
About 3 years.
Well, I was going to say, because I was looking at them, sometimes it seems like it's one every week, but sometimes one every 2 weeks. Is there a schedule to it, or just when you feel like you have time to do it and can do it?
Well, I started doing one every 2 weeks.
Right.
And then I wrote a book. And
we're going to talk about that.
Again, I found out that I couldn't do one every 2 weeks and do it the way I wanted to do it and write and edit the book. And you know how that is. And so I started doing one a month. The last one, and I was very consistent. The last one I did was in December. And I took a little break for a variety of reasons. And I'm recording now, and the podcast will start coming out again in June, beginning of June.
Okay, well, let's move to the book. The book is, yes, I started reading it, and it seems to be a book that is, it's inspiring. It tells your story, and it goes into how to sort of approach your life if you're a little lost. Is that fair?
That is fair. I think a lot of people are in the same situation that I found myself in, just kind of stuck and didn't know what to do next. And I think you can get there through divorce or a broken relationship or your kids leaving home, retirement, health issues, relocation, lots of different reasons.
Well, a lot of people are alone together. They're married, they're in a relationship, but they find themselves alone for whatever reason, a traveling spouse, or maybe they're just in a different place. The kids, like you say, have left home, and maybe their friends are passing or ill, and you feel kind of lonely in life.
Right. I think there are a lot of different reasons, and we often need a kickstart or a reboot. I know I did.
And so what's your advice generally in the book?
I hope that I don't offer a lot of advice in the book. I hope it's more my story. This is what I did. This is how it worked for me. I bet it can work for you too. I think if I had to offer advice, it would be you have to put yourself out there. And whether it's trying to find your passion project or friends or a new job or community, you have to put yourself out there. You have to make it happen. And I got better at doing that.
Yeah. Well, and I know that now, reading about your life, you're very fulfilled in Nashville. I know you're a friend of my friend, Roseanne Rogers, the Buzz Lady.
Yes.
I saw them both in December, Roseanne and her husband. So tell me about your life in Nashville, because obviously your kids left home and they've still left home. And a grandmother now?
I am a grandmother two times over. Each son has, thank you. Each son has one child, and they both live out west where it's cold and snowy, and I never expected that. But I also never expected to live in Nashville. I lived in Houston for 20 years. We were so happy, had all our activities and our infrastructure there. And if you had told me 10 years ago that I'd be living in Nashville, Tennessee, I would have laughed my head off. But, and there were those people that said, oh, change is good. You'll be glad that you have a change. And I didn't believe them, of course. But It's been good. We still see our Houston friends. We get back to Houston. I was there a couple weeks ago, and we found friends and a community. Had to work at it, but Frank, I don't think I want to move again.
Yeah. So Nashville's your home now, right?
I hope so. I hope so.
I've had a few friends move there. They all seem to like it. You know, I grew up in Birmingham, directly 3 hours south of Nashville.
Right.
And so I almost went to Vanderbilt. I was that close. I ended up not because they didn't have a journalism program. So that's the reason I didn't go, because I wanted a journalism degree. But in a college town like that, it has now grown into a big music city. There's got to be a zillion things to do.
There are lots to do. We moved here for my husband's job, and it was the right move for us, although tough. But I like the climate. You know, we have 4 seasons. The winters are typically fairly mild, although this winter's been cold. We have a nice spring and fall and not too hot of a summer. We always laugh at the people here complaining about the heat and humidity. We said,
They have no idea.
you obviously have not lived in Houston, Texas. But there are lots to do, and much smaller than Houston, and no baseball team. We still miss our Astros, that's for sure.
I hear you. So one more time, your blog, I know you're not writing it much anymore, but your website, whoimettoday.com, it also has a lot of great travel tips. I read the whole thing about your trip up to Providence, Rhode Island, and all these different places you went. So there's a lot more there if people are interested.
Thank you for reading it. I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. And tell us, how can we listen to your podcast?
Well, if you go to the blog, whoimettoday.com, the podcasts are listed there, and you can click a link and go directly to them. They're also on Apple, Spotify, and all the typical podcast platforms. Just look up Who I Met Today, and it will pop up.
Okay, and your book, I saw it. I mean, I got it on Amazon. There you go. Do the Next New Thing. A beautiful cover. Did you design that yourself? It's great.
Well, I
cover.
had some help with a book cover designer, but I had the idea.
Well, and it's a great read because it's like you're just sitting here talking to you, like I'm doing today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think voice is probably the mainstay of any good book. You've got to have a really good, strong voice. And so I know you're busy, but what's the next new thing for you? What can you do now?
Well, I always do little things during the day, and you're my new thing today, talking on your show. So thank you. But believe it or not, I'm going to try my hand at writing a romance novel. Not a steamy one, but I'm going to give that a try. It gives me something to work on, and we'll see. It may never materialize, but you don't know unless you try.
Absolutely. I love it. I love your spirit. Pam Lamp, thank you so much for joining us here on Hello Houston, and thank you for being a friend of Frank. I really appreciate it.
Frank, thank you so very much.
Well, that was really interesting, Frank.
I mean, talk about taking the bull by the horns.
Truly.
And a lot of people this happens to. I think
Yes.
I think especially, not to sound sexist, but women.
Sure.
Because the husband will get a job in a different city and sort of take his family with him.
Yeah, I mean, I did it multiple times, and I think it's one of those things where a lot of women, and now we're seeing more men do this as well, right? But traditionally it's been more women put their careers on the back burner and they support their husband in moving and relocating. And a lot of responsibility comes, especially when you have children, when you do that, because, you know, your husband goes to work and he's just going to go to an office.
And you got to find the mother group.
But you have to find, but not even the mother group. You have to get the cell phones, the internet set up. You have to make sure if, you know, your furniture is arriving. There's this.
I wonder who did all that.
Weeks.
It turns out y'all do.
Yes. You know, there's these weeks, and every, you know, I think a lot of stay-at-home moms understand that there's these silent responsibilities that come when you take on that type of role. And so whenever you move to a new city, you're by yourself, and then you're also at home for the first couple of weeks. And then there's our music playing me out. So,
well, at least
it was
we had a good hour. Let's have another good hour.
Let's have another great hour. Coming up on Hello Houston, on our second hour, we'll continue to dive into today's topics and the top stories of the day. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston. We'll be back. We'll see you in a bit.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
We believe in your right to free information. Help protect trusted news that keeps us all informed by supporting Houston Public Media. Stand up for your right to information. Give today at houstonpublicmedia.org or call 888-909-0887.
We have a chance for showers and thunderstorms before 4 today. Currently, it's 88. This is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, we continue diving into today's top stories, including the Trump administration fending off claims that the U.S. strike on Iran's nuclear program was less effective than first claimed. I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. We'll also speak with Nicole Zayas Manzano, Deputy Director of Policy at the Bail Project, who will break down the major changes to the state's bail system.
Plus, we'll also dive into our weekly Current Obsessions, our regular Thursday feature where we share our latest pop culture favorites.
And we want to hear from you. Do you have a current obsession or any thoughts, questions, or concerns about any of today's topics? Give us a call or text us at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel. Just go to houstonpublicmedia.org and click on the big orange banner.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. The Supreme Court has handed down a major ruling about Planned Parenthood. The justices will allow South Carolina to stop the clinics from getting federal Medicaid money, even for services that are unrelated to abortions. Mary Ziegler is a professor at the University of California Davis School of Law.
The argument that South Carolina and other red states have made essentially is that money is fungible, and that if Planned Parenthood is receiving support for the other services it provides, that allows Planned Parenthood to use fundraising and other money that it gains to offset abortion expenses. So essentially the idea was this would hurt abortion provision one way or another.
The case looked at a provision in a federal law that allows Medicaid patients to choose their own doctors as long as they're qualified providers. President Trump is hosting what the administration is calling one big beautiful event at the White House today. NPR's Tamara Keith reports the event is designed to push Senate Republicans to pass the president's massive tax cut and spending bill.
President Trump has set a July 4th deadline for Congress to get the bill on his desk, working the phones to apply pressure as he flew home from Europe yesterday. And today, an event from the East Room features Americans the White House says will benefit from the bill's tax cuts and other provisions. Truck drivers, firefighters, tipped workers, and others. The White House is pushing back on the message from Democrats that the legislation would benefit the wealthy while taking away health benefits from the poor. The measure contains the bulk of the president's legislative agenda, meaning the stakes are high for both him and his party. Tamara Keith, NPR News.
Iran says it's decided to suspend cooperation with the UN's International Atomic Energy Agency after U.S. and Israeli attacks on its nuclear sites. NPR's Jana Raff reports.
Iran's parliament recommended the move, and on Thursday, state media said the country's influential Guardian Council approved it. Iranian officials had said they were considering the suspension after unprovoked attacks by Israel and the U.S. on Iranian facilities. Iran has blamed the IAEA for paving the way for attacks by declaring Iran non-compliant with the agency's monitoring requirements. Iran has made clear that the suspension does not mean it will pull out of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. It says its uranium enrichment program is for peaceful purposes. Israel and the U.S. say the attacks were aimed at halting a nuclear weapons program. Jane Araf, NPR News, Amman.
Stocks are trading higher on Wall Street at this hour. The Dow was up 343 points. This is NPR News in Washington.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. President Donald Trump says the recent U.S. military strikes on Iran obliterated that country's nuclear infrastructure. But a preliminary U.S. intelligence report says it was a more limited impact that set Iran's nuclear program back just a few months. Nancy Sims, a political science professor at the University of Houston, was on Houston Matters Wednesday and shared her thoughts on the differing accounts.
I don't think we're actually going to know until we can get a team of international inspectors into Iran and find out what's going on with their nuclear program. We can say we obliterated their facilities, but all we have is pictures from the outside. We don't know exactly what damage was done on the inside.
Trump did not dispute the Defense Intelligence Agency's initial assessment, but said it was only an early look. While the Texas lottery will continue on for another 4 years, it will do so without the state's lottery commission. Governor Abbott signed a bill Sunday night that abolishes the commission effective September 1st. From then on, the lottery will be under the control of the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. The move follows intense criticism of the commission, stemming in part from the proliferation of online ticket sales through apps known as lottery couriers. The bill Abbott signed also bans online lottery ticket sales. Taking a look at sports, the Astros take another one from Philly 2-0 last night. The Phillies finish up their visit to Houston this afternoon at Daikin Park, first pitch at 1:10. And Houston continues to lead the AL West by 5.5 games. Your check of weather, 50% chance of showers this afternoon. Otherwise, partly sunny, 89 the high. Tonight, partly cloudy, a low of 76. Right now, partly cloudy, 86 degrees on the UH campus. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the George Lucas Educational Foundation, creator of Edutopia, dedicated to improving the learning experience for America's students by sharing what works in pre-K through 12 education at edutopia.org.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome
Hello.
back.
Welcome to Keisha. She just joined us on YouTube.
Hey, friend.
I know. You can get us on YouTube anytime you want.
That's right.
Either youtube.com/Houston Public Media, or go to our Hello Houston page and just start clicking Watch Live, and eventually you'll
we'll
get there.
be there. And also, if you're tuning in your car, thanks for joining us, or if you're heading to lunch.
Yep. I want to revisit that. You were talking about how wives...
Yes,
usually
just
always
the
get
responsibility. Earlier in our first hour, we were discussing about kind of that how, Friends with Frank episode, and you can hear all of our interviews and podcasts, like Frank was saying, on YouTube. But Frank was talking to Pam Lamp and how she had moved, and now she's authored this new book about moving and saying yes and trying new things.
Right. Right. And how you were saying how when the husband moves, it's very much on the shoulders of the wife.
Yeah, or a partner.
Or a partner,
the one who's going
yeah.
to work, and the person that's staying at home. It's really tough because there's these silent pressures in your home. And so
and you don't know anybody.
You don't know
You don't know who to call. Hey, where should I take my dog to the vet?
Yes, right. Where do I take my vet? Where do I, and you're also waiting for your cell phone service. So you're spending time, or not your cell phone, your internet, to get your internet set up. And so, yeah, trying new things and moving to a different place can be very lonely, but
and the worst thing you can do.
Make some great friends.
And I'm not a psychologist, although we'll talk about maybe later in the show, if you're the working spouse, never say to the other person, well, that's your job because I'm working.
Right.
You have to still be in all of that crap together.
Yes.
Because you're being supported at work whether you realize that or not.
That's the key,
Yeah.
is that, and when we moved, we moved through Dan's company. And so it was one of those things where they had somebody that helped us. And that was something that she brought up. She said, your husband's going to go to work and he's going to be in an office and his environment is going to be pretty much the same. You are going to be in another country.
And he's free to do that and get good at what he does because you're shouldering so much responsibility. And he needs to realize that and say, look, can I take the cable boxes to Comcast? Can I call and find us a
Frank, you're a
vet?
good husband.
No, I've learned to be. 30 years, August 12th. But no, I've learned to be.
30 years.
Yeah, because a lot of things I would sleep in and I wouldn't go to work until 2. And Kevin had a lot to do, and he was working also. And I was like, well, I have to go be important on TV. Right. He's like, no, you have to be important as my husband.
That's right. Equal responsibility. So speaking of, different topics that we've been looking at, yesterday we were talking about Texas Governor Abbott signed HB 1418. You're going to find this very interesting, Frank. And on Sunday, and it's banning cell phones in Texas public and open enrollment charter schools during school hours. And I got this email from this company that basically did a survey, and it said it's talking about the banning of the cell phones
for kids in school,
for kids K through 12 students and other personal devices during school hours. In fact, it said 70% of teachers said that with strict policies, their students learn safer and more engaged. And it was study.com that did this study. Said a recent survey about cell phone bans and smartwatches, they found that 50% of teachers say smartwatches are becoming a substitute for cell phones in classrooms.
So all of it is going to be banned.
All of it is banned. And it's
you mean you're going to have to
gone.
grow up like I did?
The old-fashioned way.
With a payphone in the hall?
The old-fashioned way. 25 cents.
I still have a landline.
Well, landlines are important too. Okay, so the other thing that I found extremely interesting.
Okay.
You ready? I know Ernie's usually our tidbits.
Okay, you
but
got
this
one?
This is so interesting. Girlfriend apologies top America's sorry list. People living in the U.S. search how to apologize to your girlfriend more than any other apology phrase. Boyfriend apologies rank second, showing that romantic partners dominate the sorry stakes, and cheating apologies are the third most common reason Americans seek forgiveness help online.
I'm telling you, the answer to every question is either sex or money. That is. It's
I'm
always
sorry.
the answer. That's always
to the
the
girlfriend.
answer.
I just thought that was so interesting. People are typing in how to apologize to your girlfriend, how to apologize to your boyfriend, how to apologize for cheating.
Well,
how to
if they
apologize
don't know
to
how to apologize, then you're in the
Jeez.
wrong relationship.
Jeez.
That's my advice.
Yikes. America. What is happening? No. But there is a lot happening and coming up on today's show. What do we have coming up on today's show? Frank?
Deputy Director of Policy at the Bail Project, Nicole Zayas Manzano. She's going to join us to talk about bail reform. We talked a little bit about bail and cannabis and yesterday. And this is going to be more, I think, about how bail is really wealth-centered. So if you are rich, you can get out of jail. And if you are poor, you cannot.
You
and
know,
so
that feels...
may need some reform. But we're going to take your questions on that. 713-440-8870.
That feels very, that saying could go to a lot of things just besides bail.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems universal. But
yeah.
You know what else is happening?
What
Donald Trump's administration is fending off claims that the U.S. strike on Iran's nuclear program was less effective than first claimed. The International Atomic Energy Agency has said the U.S. strikes caused enormous damage to Iran's program. Some experts believe Iran moved some of its enriched uranium away from the target facilities prior to the strikes. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth lashed out at reporters for cheering against President Trump's administration to the detriment of American service members on Thursday.
Because you, and I mean specifically you, the press, specifically you, the press corps, because you cheer against Trump so hard, it's like in your DNA and in your blood to cheer against Trump, because you want him not to be successful so bad, you have to cheer against the efficacy of these strikes. You have to hope maybe they weren't effective. Maybe the way the Trump administration has represented them isn't true. So let's take half-truths, spun information. leaked information and then spin it in every way we can to try to cause doubt and manipulate the public mind over whether or not our brave pilots were successful.
We want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Hegseth's comments? Do you believe his claims, or is another bad response to criticism of this administration? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
I think he's misdirecting. The information that the bombs may not have done as good a job as claimed came from the defense in the CIA, the DIA, which is part of the CIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. It's their assessment that they don't know how well the bombs performed as far as setting the nuclear mission back. It's the Israelis that have said it did a really great job, but they don't offer any evidence. They just say that. There's, I'm not sure it's the point. I mean, of course we hope it did a good job, but if it did a good job of bringing peace to that area and perhaps some conversation, then it did a good job.
I think to this point, if we're looking specifically at what we're asking, and that is the thoughts on Hegseth's comments, he's pitting the president against the media, and that is not the point. And he's causing almost fractures within our own country. But when we're looking at what was actually executed, we just want to know facts. We want to know the information. We want to know what happens. And I think that goes across political parties. Well, Republicans and Democrats want to know what exactly are we, what information, intel do we know really is factual? Not the media is putting this out against the president. We're not against the president.
No.
Just tell us what's going on.
Well, he's taking a playbook, page from the Trump playbook. The media is bad. The media is against me.
Deflect.
It's all lying. They're all lying. This is simply not true.
Right.
I mean, we all have to decide where we want to get our information. And the only way really you can decide is to listen to source A and then verify, see, is what they told you on Tuesday true next Tuesday? Does it continue to be true? Do they continue to be accurate? And when they're wrong, do they come forth and say, you know what, we reported something and we want to tell you we were wrong about it? And do they make up, or do they just try to say, oh yeah, we were right, you just misunderstood me? So you can only do that by experiencing one source or two sources of news and saying, you know what, I believe them. I believe they do the best job they can with what they're told. And when they're wrong, they admit they're wrong. I don't know any other way to do it.
Well, it's also a thing about, the historically successful is what Hegseth says was the U.S. strikes, which fantastic, but show us the evidence. This is not necessarily what we are getting. That's conflicting information.
Well, to your point,
from what we're getting.
He went off on everybody again saying, if you want proof, well, it's underneath all of those holes in the ground. I'm paraphrasing. So go get a huge shovel and dig up all that sand, and then you'll see your proof. Right. So he was trying to say the bunkers where this nuclear issue was, way down in the ground. They went down with the bombs. I mean, that's kind of what the whole Tom Cruise mission was.
Impossible?
Well, not Mission Impossible, the other one, the airplane people, the Need for Speed guy.
You know me, I'm not a movie buff, so sorry, Frank. Ernie's our movie buff, but we have been receiving some comments, and again, you can comment at 713 Top Gun 713-440-8870. My British computer guy says bad response to criticism. Press was just reading the facts. We did receive a text from Javier from Cyprus. Pete Hegseth is projecting. Everything he said about the press being so against everything Trump does is exactly what he and those at Fox News do every single time there's a Democrat as president. Projection is always their game. We did get one more off-air comment from Frank from Katie. I think it's typical of what the Trump administration people do.
Well, they spin it to their own liking, and that's no surprise. That's been the way he's been since 2016. But this is different in my opinion.
This feels different.
Well, this is something really important. Yeah. You're bombing another nation. And by doing so, you are putting Americans in harm's way. 100%. Not just the military people, but those who live in the area. Well, and so if you're going to do that, then you damn well better show us that it was a great result if you say it was.
Yeah, we want to see the receipts.
Don't tell me it was the most amazing, great thing.
Right.
Yeah, without showing me the
receipts.
Yeah, and so... We
and
can't just believe you at face value because you may have to go and bomb them again.
Right. And I feel like maybe perhaps, and maybe I should, I don't know, if I could sit down, I'd say, President Trump, maybe he just needs a little, I think you're doing a really good job, but we need to see the receipts.
Listen, I think he did the right thing. I think he had the guts to set.
I don't necessarily think that. Whatever. I don't.
Well, he was getting that whole taco reputation.
Yes.
Trump always chickens out, and so he didn't chicken out.
No.
He did what he felt needed to be done. Netanyahu obviously wanted him to do that too. So Netanyahu leads Israel, and he felt like he needed American support. So good for us. We did what we felt like we needed to do. But if you are going to say it's the best thing ever, show me that it was the best thing ever.
Show me the receipts. Yeah. Again, 713-440-8870. We have a call from Carol from Montgomery. Carol, what's on your mind?
Well, hi, everyone. Thank you for taking my call.
Hi, Carol.
I would just like to say that the bombing of Iran was not only for Israel, it was for the world. And we've been concerned about Iran for many, many years. I remember having to wait in line a long time in 79, 77 for gasoline and the problems, and then our hostages taken at the American Embassy, on and on and on. Iran has been given lots of opportunities to cooperate, and I think that our military needs to be praised for the excellence in taking care of that issue that includes the whole world in great concern.
All right, I think you're right, Carol. We also had a YouTube comment from Cheryl Jones. I think egos have become too much of the conversation.
I don't disagree. And that it's one of those things where, again, whether you think the president is doing great or not, that's not the point here. The point is we would just like to know exactly what is happening. And if we do have questions, it's not coming necessarily from we don't trust you, but this is a major geopolitical issue and conflict, and we need to know what's happening for the safety of our own country. And we also invite you to the conversation, 713-440-8870. We have a call from Diane from West Houston. Diane, what is your comment or question about this?
Well, one thing is his history is that a Fox News person. How many times did they stretch or restrain the information they shared? Do some checking on his history and tell him, by the way, we're talking from a country's safety perspective, not a Fox Newsline perspective. You're in a different seat, boy. Face up or get out.
Thanks, Diane. Thanks for that comment. Do you think that some of Hegseth's, Diane brings up an interesting point. Do you think that some of Hegseth's comments are being interpreted that he is a former Fox correspondent?
Well, he is a former Fox correspondent.
Right. So do you think that people are interpreting it from both sides? Well, what are you hiding from us?
Well, I don't know that it's hiding as much as it is spinning.
Yeah.
And I did see the pictures. Something happened. Stuff was destroyed. As to whether enough was destroyed to set their nuclear program back 4 months or 4 years or 40 years, I don't know the answer to that.
3 to 6 months, I believe, is what the information
we're getting. That's from the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, part of the CIA. So if they want to slap somebody's butt, slap their butt, not the press, because the press is only trying to get to the bottom, so to speak, of what they've been told.
Right. And again, 713-440-8870. We have a call from Rand from Kingwood. Rand, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your question or comment?
Hi, I just wanted to say that I agree with Hegseth. The news media, at least parts of the news media, absolutely do everything they can to undermine the Trump administration. And so I agree with exactly what he said.
So do you think that there should be a bit more proof of what the president is telling everyone? Or do you take what he says at face value?
I think you have to take it at face value right now. It's kind of like, how do you get proof that you've destroyed an underground bunker? How exactly do you do that?
Well, why would the division of the CIA, the DIA, why would they, that's a government agency, why would they assess this as a setback of only 3 to 6 months of the Iran nuclear mission? Why? That's where this comes from.
Well, the way I understand it is that was a small snippet of the entire intelligence report. Has the entire intelligence report been broadcast or read or looked through, or just a tiny snippet?
Well, that may be a point.
Well, the IAEA director says Iran's enriched uranium cannot be located following the U.S. strikes. So the Director General Grossi reveals U.S. strikes caused very serious damage to Iranian nuclear enrichment facilities. However, there was time for them to move the enriched uranium away from the target facilities. And that's where there is the conflicting information. And I think the concern is that the information that's coming from the president and the information that is coming out from the DIA, the CIA, is conflicting. And that's, I think, where people want to see things matching up. The same. We want to see that this is
And let me say,
honest.
there are people on both sides of the media, whether they're conservative media or liberal media, that will grab anything they can and say, look, I told you so. So there is that point. But when it comes to something as serious as bombing another nation, I think we all as Americans should be on the same page and be completely transparent. We have
Rand, thanks for your call.
Thanks,
we appreciate
Rand.
your perspective.
We have Alan from Texas City. Hi, Alan. What's up?
How y'all doing today?
Good.
I just wanted to say that a couple of things. Hesh-Smith, in my opinion, is a product of the 2025 doctrine. They are removing anyone that is competent and putting them yes men for Trump. And the other thing is, where does America get off telling any country that they can't have nuclear weapons? Nuclear weapons are the weapon of choice now, so why shouldn't Iran have one?
Well, I've given that some thought. I see your point. I think it's because it's like they're sort of the crazy people in the neighborhood, and that regime that's in charge has an ideological platform of destroying Israel. That's what they want to do, and they've said that, and they're not going to be happy until Israel is decimated. So when they say something like that, that's not the same thing as saying we need nuclear weapons to protect ourselves and make sure that no one comes after us because therefore we can go after them. What they're saying is we need those nuclear weapons so that we can go after people. And that's a whole different side of the argument. But our uranium, most of the uranium in the world came from Kazakhstan. That's why Russia has more nuclear weapons than anybody in the world because they have the uranium. Our uranium came from Canada and Australia. And Israelis' uranium, I think they kind of played a little bit, getting, I think, from England, and they said we're going to give it to Italy, and then they kept it for themselves or something. I mean, there's a lot of secrecy and not quite upfront business about how people get the uranium to spin it in the first place. But I think when you vocalize, hey, we're going to use our nuclear bombs to decimate other people, that's when the United States has to step in and say, no, you're not.
Yep. I think it's one of those things where, again, we here at Hello Houston, we welcome all perspectives. Everybody brings up extremely great conversations, and this is information that we want to know and understand. And here at Houston Public Media, that is our mission. We are going to try to bring you factual and non-biased information. So thanks for listening to Hello Houston. And coming up on Hello Houston, Deputy Director of Policy at the Bail Project, Nicole Zayas Manzano, will join us to talk about bail reform, and she'll take your questions at 713-440-8870. This is News 8870.
I'm Josh Adams, the new general manager of Houston Public Media, and we are here for one reason: you. I'm thrilled to lead this remarkable team dedicated to our mission of informing, educating, and inspiring everyone in the greater Houston area. And yes, these are challenging times, but together we'll meet them head on with bold ideas, honest reporting, and stories that matter. Houston Public Media is your public media. Together, let's make it incredible.
On the next Science Friday, you've seen the headlines about GLP-1 medications like Ozempic and Wegovy. We'll unpack the science of how these drugs actually work.
The drugs work primarily, I'm not saying this is the only way they work. They work essentially through their adverse effects.
That's on Science Friday from WNYC Studios.
You can hear it Friday at 1 o'clock.
Did you know 80% of our funding comes from listeners like you, right here in Houston? That's why your support is so important. When you give to Houston Public Media, you're investing in trusted news and educational programming that millions depend on daily. Every dollar you give makes a difference, ensuring this public service stays strong for everyone in our community. Help us support this mission. Give today at houstonpublicmedia.org or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from Specs Wine, Spirits, and Finer Foods. Texas family-owned and operated since 1962, offering a large selection of wines, spirits, and beers to choose from. Details at specsonline.com. The fun starts here.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Visit Galveston, celebrating Juneteenth. As Juneteenth's birthplace, visitors can explore exhibits, tours, and events honoring the legacy of freedom all month long. More at visitgalveston.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Celestia Sherman and Frank Billingsley.
We are having spirited discussions
We are very
here.
spirited.
So this legislative session, Texas lawmakers passed major changes to the state's bail system. Some that could protect due process and others that critics say deepen wealth-based incarceration. Joining us today is Nicole Zayas Manzano, Deputy Director of Policy at The Bail Project, a national nonprofit working to end cash bail and advance a fairer pretrial justice system. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can call us or text 713-440-8870. Nicole, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm delighted you're here because, quite frankly, I'm interested in what your project is all about. So, first of all, let's explain, correct me if I'm wrong, to people that bail basically, if you commit a crime and your bail is $10,000, you don't have $10,000, you go to a bail bondsman and give him $1,000 and he'll put up the $10,000 and you're going to lose the $1,000. And then you're supposed to show up, or if you don't show up, he's not going to get his $10,000 back, and that's when he becomes a bounty hunter. Do I have all that right?
Yes, I think that's a simple but accurate way to break it down.
Okay, so your complaint, I suppose, is that with $100,000 bails, when you have to have $10,000 to get out of jail, a lot of people don't have that. So that becomes a wealth-based bail system, correct?
Yes, I think that a lot of people, unfortunately, can't afford the bail amounts that are set and how often judges rely on bail amounts because they don't have to use cash, but that is usually the go-to for the criminal justice system. And so while legally innocent people should have this presumption of freedom while fighting their case until they're found convicted, most people simply don't have that.
So
and I'm not simply talking about those who can't afford as some small minority. Most people can't afford the bail amounts set against them. And so most people would be trapped inside unless they can turn to someone for help.
Which it's interesting, Nicole, that you mentioned turning to someone to help in one of the new bail laws, which is Senate Bill 40 that passed. It would prohibit local governments from contracting with nonprofits that use donations to pay bail. Can you elaborate on that? And how is this going to affect the current bail situation?
So SB 40 is the bill that you're referring to. That particular bill is an interesting one. It's a bit based off of a tweet gone wrong, to be honest.
Wow.
There are in Harris County, the auditor's website lists organizations that receive money from the government. And they list that under something called vendors. Now, if you do a contract with the city, it makes sense that your information is listed there. However, organizations like bail funds, including the Bail Project, that put up their own money for bail when the case is done and the person returned to every single trial, every single hearing along the way, they're supposed to give the money back to the person who paid. For organizations like ours, the Harris County Auditor's Office puts that on the page that happened to say vendors. And I think that sparked a lot of debate and question about what that means. There was a tweet that went a bit viral last year that suggested that that meant groups like ours and charitable bail funds who actually rely on public donations for the money that they put forth to bail someone out were actually taking taxpayer dollars for that purpose from cities and governments across Texas. And that is just not true. So SB 40 was seeking to stop a practice that is actually not happening. And so, unfortunately, this became a bit of a thinly veiled attack against charitable bail funds that actually isn't true. And the Harris County Auditor's Office clarified that after this bill started to move forward, but legislators thought, well, we want to make sure it never could happen, so let's pass it. The unintended consequence of passing something like that, though, is that organizations that maybe do direct services for their own communities will not be allowed to also have a bail fund as part of their operations. And if they do, they can't get any government contracts to do all of their other wonderful work for their community. So I think it has a really unfortunate consequence based off of something that wasn't really accurate.
So will this affect, you mentioned the bail project. So how does this affect your organization directly?
It doesn't, because we weren't taking any taxpayer dollars.
Okay,
and so we are fine, but we were,
it was supposed to be like
brought up quite a bit in
right.
hearings by Senator Joan Huffman, who thought at the time that we were taking taxpayer dollars to pay bail for people, but that is just completely false. And we provided documentation, and Harris County Auditor's Office provided documentation to help curtail that falsehood. Unfortunately, they decided to move forward with the entire thing. Fortunately, it does not impact our operations.
Because you're all donation based. Is that right?
Yes. We're donation based. We do not take any government dollars throughout Texas. And really, we actually, at this point, no longer bail people out anymore in Texas. We did that for about 3 years. We proved that our model of helping people return back to court by providing them reminders, providing them transportation, and just, somebody to hop on the phone with you and help you figure out when life gets in the way. If your babysitter fell through, helping you figure out how to get childcare so you can get to court. Those are the services that we continue to provide for people in Texas, but our operations of bailing people out moving forward actually ended in 2023 when we felt that we had proven that your own money doesn't need to be on the line. You just need some support to get back to court.
So how, if you are incarcerated and your bail is $10,000 and you can't afford the $1,000 to give to the bail bondsman, who do you call?
So there are other bail funds throughout Texas. For example, the Texas Organizing Project is one. I think there are other groups, such as churches, that have historically done this since the beginning of our entire country. Collecting funds to help loved ones and community members is not a new concept. They exist throughout. And what we are hoping to do for now is continue to advance the idea that cash should not be the go-to for the system itself, and to try to change the laws to reflect what we've learned from our experience, that with sufficient support, people for the most part go back to court. It's just that life gets a little in the way. And if you help them address that, you don't need to keep people incarcerated when they're still legally innocent on taxpayer dime.
We're speaking with Nicole Zayas Manzano, with the Deputy Director of Policy at the Bail Project. You can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. Now, you and Frank were talking about this a little bit earlier. Senate Bill 9, which basically, how Frank was explaining it, puts people at a disparity in regards to wealth. Can you elaborate on Senate Bill 9? Because that was one that passed.
That is one of the bills that passed this year, having to do with the pretrial system. It really expands wealth-based detention by requiring cash bail more often from judges. So it stops the ability of judges to decide that somebody should be out and at home until their trial by saying essentially you can't do that without cash bail more often. So it lists more offenses that judges won't have the choice, even if the person in front of them, they believe they'll come back to court and won't harm the public. They have to put a cash bail amount.
So we commonly call that released on their own recognizance, right? I mean, that's generally what you're asking them to do. And now this bill is saying, well, I can't do that. I've got to at least put some cash bail.
To put at least cash
so
bail.
What?
You really have a lot of things at your disposal, but it requires cash bail.
So in your opinion, what kind of crimes are you talking about that people should be allowed to go home and believe that they're going to come back and be tried? Are we talking about a DUI, a little marijuana on their person? And we're not talking about hard crimes, are we? Or give me your list of what is permissible, or is everybody innocent until proven guilty?
Well, in my view, and in the Bail Project's view, everyone should be presumed innocent. And there should be a real decision by a judge who's looking at your case about whether or not you're a risk to the public in any way, shape, or form, and whether you're a risk of genuinely trying to run away from court, not simply not coming back because it's hard, because they think that happens and is just a logistical challenge that the court has to figure out what to do with. And once they sort of assess what those risk levels are, no matter the offense in front of them, the alleged offense in front of them, then they should be able to decide what kind of things they should or could require to take away from those challenges and those risks that you potentially permit. So example, if they think that you might not come back to court, but that you're not going to actually run away, a very simple thing available to all courts across Texas is to opt into a court reminder system that the state set up a few years ago. That allows somebody to get reminders, much like your doctor's appointments, that just say, hey, your court hearing is coming up, or hey, it's been rescheduled. This is the time, and this is a number to call if you're having a challenge about that day and time. It simply allows communication and a reminder system that allows most people to overcome the challenge of maybe not being able to make it, but they're not actually trying to run away. So there are simple conditions like that that the court could figure out and provide. If you think somebody is potentially a danger, you could feasibly have them return home and they're not allowed to leave home and they have an ankle bracelet. I don't think that's an ideal solution. You'd have to think that somebody really presents a risk, but we shouldn't presume that simply because somebody's accused of something, or else presumed innocent doesn't mean anything.
And Nicole, Senate Joint Resolution SJR 5 is awaiting voter approval. So this will be on the November ballot. And this proposed constitutional amendment expands the state's pretrial detention authority, but includes historic due process safeguards. Can you talk to us about those safeguards?
Yes, we're really thrilled to see that what was originally introduced as a means of expanding pretrial detention. So the situation where judges simply say, you are staying in jail no matter what until your trial, even though you're legally innocent. While that was expanded through SJR 5 potentially and on the ballot for that expansion, at first it didn't include many things to ensure that a legally innocent person has the best chance of having a robust conversation during that decision. And now I think it does. It now includes a guaranteed right to counsel at that hearing where your pretrial liberty is at stake. Most people think because, TV says you have a right to counsel that you get that immediately. That's not true. Across Texas, most people do not have counsel at that first hearing after they're arrested. They get assigned them later. But that first hearing is crucial when it's the one that determines whether or not you're stuck in jail or not. To not have that counsel there for that very important decision is a huge mistake. And so SJR 5 now includes ensuring that if it's possible for pretrial detention to be the outcome of this hearing, counsel has to be there with you by your side as an option.
That's good. I was going to say it also saves us money because we're not incarcerating as many people. There is for you a call I want to get to before we have to wrap. Noah from Summerwood. Noah, what's your question?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody.
Hi.
So a question I have is that a really frequent talking point in Harris County politics, especially post-COVID, is the supposed issue that county criminal judges are letting violent felons out on very low bail, where they subsequently will go out and commit violent felonies or murders. Is this true? Is there actually truth to this talking point? Is there an endemic issue within our criminal justice system that keeps causing this, or is it just a talking point hurled at defendants and Democratic judges?
Yeah, fair question, Nicole.
Great question.
That's a great question. I think this is something that comes up quite a bit in the Texas conversation, even beyond Harris County. But Harris County, several years ago, 2019 officially, did adopt a reform, but that reform is about misdemeanors. And so I think what's gotten confused in all of this is the idea that people are being allowed to be released on their own recognizance and come back to court on their own are people facing misdemeanor charges for the most part. And there's data from an independent monitor who's been watching it and paying attention to the numbers ever since then that says that most of those, like the same amount of people who were coming back before are coming back now post that reform, and the rearrest rates are not higher. So it's actually creating a safer community, in our opinion, because it's allowing people to stay out of jail, which is a destabilizing area, and allowing them to fight their trial from home. If they're found convicted, then they face the same kind of punishment in the end. The narrative that all of these judges are letting all of these people out is really an exaggeration that is taking on its own form. But data shows that it's not true.
Okay. Nicole, we got to wrap it, but if people want to find out more about the Bail Project, where should they go?
Thebailproject.org is a great place to start. And I thank you so much for having me here. We're really excited to explore this conversation together and to continue it on our website.
Actually, sorry, Nicole, we do have one call that I think we are going to take. Is that person on the line? We're waiting for that because I do think this is a really important, like you said, there is a lot of confusion about this. And yes, we have a call from Terrence from the Galleria. Terrence, welcome to Hello Houston. Are you on the line?
I am here.
Okay, so Terrence, you can ask your question to Nicole.
Well, actually, I had a comment to the last guy. So I'm a criminal defense attorney. So I see this every single day about the bonds and everything like that. So I want to address the fact of, do we really have people that get out and commit crimes? So the Constitution is being amended now to try to stop what they think is happening. It's not. And so what really happens is that the Democratic judges are doing the same thing the Republican judges is what the Constitution says. And our state constitution says that everybody is presumed innocent unless found guilty. So you must be treated as an innocent person, meaning you must be given a chance to your freedom. The state can't just take your freedom without proving you guilty. So when we're attacking the judges, say, oh, they're just letting people out on low bonds, they're doing what the Constitution says for them to do. Now, what happens every day in court is that the prosecutor will say, Judge, I want a bond for this. The defense will say, Judge, we believe this is a fair bond. And the judge will listen to that and they'll make the argument, okay, you asked for $10,000, I'll give you $10,000. So it's not really up to the judges. It's more of the DAs and what they present to the judge, and the judge decides what the law allows them to decide.
Well, it sounds like Nicole was saying, you need a defense attorney at that very first hearing, and a lot of people are not getting that.
Well, you in Harris County, you did not at first. Now you do. So when you have your first hearing in front of the magistrate, our public defender's office is there, and they staff that hearing so that way everybody who goes in front of the magistrate will have somebody there to defend them.
Nicole, your comment to all that?
Yes, that's true in Harris County. It's now going to be potentially true across Texas with SJR 5. However, SB 9 is also trying to make it so that magistrates cannot release people as easily. And so it's forcing that to go on to a different hearing with a judge, which will cause delays and potentially more incarceration because the magistrate is not allowed to release, and it becomes a second hearing later.
Okay. Well, the Bail Project,
Terrence,
thank you
thanks
so
also,
much.
Terrence, for calling.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there.
There is a lot to unpack.
Thank
Nicole, thank you for joining us today on Hello
you.
Houston. Nicole is the Deputy Director of Policy at the Bail Project. And she'll be taking your questions. You can also email them at talk@hellohouston. This is News 88.7. We'll be back with our current.
I know. I want to know what little towns you have that you can share.
What little town are you obsessed with? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
Your support allows Houston Public Media to be a vital source of education and connection, providing free access to programming for all ages. We are grateful to these Catalyst supporters. Their generosity fuels our ability to innovate and be prepared for whatever the future may lead. John Bradshaw, Estate of John Iman, Margaret and Vince Foster, Estate of Marcia Moore, Estate of Billy Winkleman, and the Wortham Foundation. Thank you.
It's more important than ever to stay informed. That's why Houston Public Media delivers well-researched news that's free for everyone.
And right now, your support helps make sure it stays that way. No subscription, no paywall, just news that's here when you need it.
Give today to keep yourself and your community informed, no matter what the future holds.
Make your donation now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Or call 888-909-0887.
It's not lost on me that they waited until after we signed on the dotted line to disclose a possible haunting in the backyard.
Join us for more true stories told live. Humans plus nature, when your body or trees talk. Next time on the Moth Radio Hour from PRX.
You can hear the Moth Story Hours coming up Saturday at noon on News 88.7.
Support comes from Scan Health Plan, a not-for-profit Medicare Advantage plan that has been dedicated to the health and independence of their members since 1977. More information at scanhealthplan.com.
Support comes from Artec House with Rolling Stone Presents Amplified, the immersive rock experience, highlighting the history of rock and roll and featuring over 300 artists whose music changed the world. Tickets at artechhouse.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To get your comment in on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Celeste Diaz Sherman and Frank Billingsley.
And now it's time to dive into our current obsessions. This is a rundown of things that are currently taking over all of our free time. We do this every Thursday at the end of our show. A current obsession is that TV show you got to run home to continue. It's that song that you have on repeat on your Spotify playlist. It is that audiobook that makes you drive an extra mile in your car. You get the idea.
Yeah, I get it.
You get the idea?
It's an obsession.
Well, before we jump into Frank and I's obsession for this
Frank
week,
and mine.
you know, one of the top trending items right now on X is the new trailer for the upcoming Fantastic Four film, and that's set to be released on July 25th. And before we get into our interest, we welcome you. Share your current obsession with us by calling or sending us a text, 713-440-8870. You can also email us, talk@hellohouston.org.
Okay, I'll say we started, and this isn't my obsession, but we started Sirens on Netflix. It's only 6 episodes, and we have 2 left. We're going to watch later tonight.
Are
But
you
it's
binging
one of
it?
these sort of kind of a murder mystery, but it's a rich person's weird kind of psychological story. But it's pretty good.
Sirens. Who's in it?
Julianne Harris, is that her name? The one?
Okay.
You look that up. Okay.
I'll look it up. Well, okay, so if we're in the category...
Kevin Bacon's in it.
Kevin Bacon. Okay, yes. So if we're in the category of, film and movies, Ernie has been telling me to start Hacks. Actually, he's been telling all of us.
I love Hacks.
I just started the
You
first
like it?
season 1. I'm obsessed.
Okay.
I'm obsessed. That's my obsession, watching
this last season. I think it was season 4 was excellent.
That's what I've heard. It's really
3
great.
was good too. I mean, I really like. I didn't think I was going to like it, but. I thought it was like a Joan Rivers knockoff, and what more can you say? But no, it's very original. It's very funny. It
feels very current.
And they're only 30 minutes.
And they're 30 minutes. They're easy. They're very digestible. Yep. It's good writing.
No, I was wrong. It was great. I loved it.
I thought it was really great. Okay.
So this week is the American Meteorological Society Broadcast Weather Conference, which means a bunch of TV weathermen go on a junket to
weathercasters.
There are plenty of weather women these days. Trust me. I've been going for 30 years, right? I didn't go this year, and one of the reasons was, it's in Boise, Idaho. And I thought, God, how do you even get to Boise, Idaho? Does Southwest even go to Boise, Idaho? Well, they do. And so now I've been getting all of these Facebook pictures and messages from my friends that are there, and I'm so jealous.
You're having FOMO, Frank.
I'm obsessed with Boise.
But you're also having fear of missing out.
I am missing out, but I'm here with you, so that's okay. But I mean, they have aquariums and parks and hiking trails and an old Idaho penitentiary.
Yes.
And it's big. It's like 750,000 people live in that area. It's beautiful. Right now it's 78 degrees with 30% humidity. So it certainly beats here. So I'm jealous, of the weather. And it looks like the club scene is fun, and the bars and the restaurants. And they're learning a lot too, which is always fun.
Well, I think that's an interesting point, Frank, right? You're obsessed with this small town that kind of feels historical.
And is it worth going to? Like you think, I could go. It might be good. But you've spent a lot of time and money going somewhere. And you're like, God, why did I come here?
To Boise, Idaho.
So that's why I want people to tell me, what are their little finds out there that either tell us on YouTube or give us a call.
So I think that there's something very charming about, especially living in Houston, Texas. We don't have a lot of charming little areas.
Well, I got to go to Old Town Spring.
We can go to Old Town Spring.
Galveston, the Strand. There are, but you're right.
One of the things that I love about going to Colorado is that there are all of these little pockets of small towns that you can go to that are very charming.
I have friends in Leadville. They love Leadville. So if you're going to name your place Leadville, you better be charming.
You better have it. But we love to hear from you, and we have a call, and you could join the conversation. We want to know what your current obsession is. 713-440-8870. Joseph from 3rd Ward. Joseph, what's your current obsession?
Well, if you're looking for a charming town like the ones that you mentioned, the one that I found to be is Wimberley, which is located in the hill country.
Yep.
And I visited there for the first time a couple of years ago, and it felt like something out of a Hallmark movie. I was like, wow, I didn't know this existed.
What season were you there? Do you remember?
I was there around December. It's around my birthday.
Happy
I was
birthday.
there right before Christmas.
Oh, perfect.
Everything was decorated nicely for Christmas. All the shops had all their holiday things out front, and so it was
We're doing it.
It was a very fine experience. I enjoyed it very much.
Oh, Joseph, thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
We mentioned Wimberley earlier, and you know what I like about Wimberley? It's not that far away.
That's between here and Austin, basically.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, right? For people, there's a lot of uncertainty right now, and one of the things is economic uncertainty, and then the other one of it is travel. Right, you're just
airplanes are rough.
Airplanes are rough. My mom was flying back from Colorado, an easy flight last night, and her flight got delayed in Austin.
Hey, we have 12-year-old Izzy on the line from Katy. Hi, Izzy.
Hi, Izzy. Welcome to Hello Houston.
Hello.
What's your current obsession?
So my current obsession is I love this album called the Child of God, but it's written by Forrest Frank.
Oh, amazing. And so is this an album? Where could we hear this? Is it a song?
Yes, it is a song. He has 2 albums out now, and my favorite album is the second one.
And that's by Forrest Frank?
Yes.
And you just listen to it over and over and over?
Is that your repeat on your Spotify?
Yes.
I love it.
Are you out on summer? Is that what other current obsessions are you, or what are you doing this summer, Izzy?
I'm just going to practice for football for varsity this year.
Nice.
Congrats. That's a big
awesome.
one.
Yeah, that is a big one. I remember this. I have Cindy from Dallas.
Thanks for calling, Izzy.
Dallas is listening to us. Hi, Cindy. What's your current obsession? Is it Houston?
No, I'm leaving Houston now, going home. You talked about small towns. The small town of Granbury, Granbury, is a great town square. They have great restaurants, festivals on holidays. I have some friends who redid the Nut House Hotel. It's a great little hotel Airbnb on the square.
Sweet. I've heard of Granbury.
How fun. I'm looking at Granbury right now. I'm going to be doing some fun little trips with my family, and I'm going to have to check out Wimberley and
Me
Granbury.
too. And I got to get to Kerrville.
And you've got to get to Kerrville.
Take them some water. They don't have any water in Kerrville.
But that brings us to the end of our show. We want to thank you for listening, chatting, calling, watching us on YouTube, and watching us and listening to us on 88.7.
Hi, Ernie, wherever you are.
And we will be back tomorrow with more conversations. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from Pearland, Texas, a community with a variety of living options, from new construction, mature neighborhoods, and urban living, designed